What's up, everybody? Thanks again for stopping by for another edition of March 4th with Mike Bauman. I, of course, am your host, Mike Bauman. Whoever you are, wherever you are listening from, thank you so much for checking out the podcast. If you're a returning listener, I greatly appreciate your continued love and support. And if you're a brand new listener of the show, thank you so much for hopping aboard that pirate ship. You can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at March 4th Pod. The link tree with all of my stuff is in the podcast description for this episode. So that means if you made it here, then you found me somehow. And I truly appreciate each and every one of you taking the time to check out another edition of the March 4th with Mike Bauman podcast. How is everybody doing? I hope that life finds you well as this is hitting your eardrums. Life is good, man, and I'm excited for the rest of this year. We're a quarter down. I know I talk about time a lot. I go back and listen to these, and I'm like, man, I reference time a lot. Maybe I just need to stop talking about time and be more in the moment. A work in progress, folks. But yeah, we are a quarter through the year, and it's an exciting time of year for me. I'm a big basketball junkie, and this is like, the best time. We just got through March Madness. We got the NBA playoffs on the horizon. I'm a big Detroit Pistons fan, man. Ever since I went to my first game, Pistons game, that is for my seventh grade birthday when I was 13 years old, man, I was hooked. It's a great time of year. The Pistons are back. Basketball is at its height. Unfortunately, my Red Wings have missed the playoffs yet again. But they had a great streak growing up, though, dude. I mean, we were really spoiled in the '90s as Red Wings fans. There were some great years, and they got some good players now. But anywho's, great time of the year for sports. A lot of great music going on right now, both where I am locally in the Nashville area, the Music City, and just around the country, man. Especially as a guy who's really, heavy music. Those of you who know me and listen to the show a lot, that's my wheelhouse, and it's just such an awesome time for heavy music. I think everything from like deathcore to metalcore to all of it. New metal is back. Like for a while, people hated on new metal, and now like new metal is back again, which is cool. And just there's industrial stuff going on. There's a lot of really cool cinematic stuff going on, and it's just really cool, man. A lot of awesome shows, a lot of awesome tours, a lot of great new music coming out. And I feel really lucky to be able to have a platform where I get to discuss all of it with yous and also cover mental health and people persevering through challenges and chasing their dreams. We're all human, folks. So if I can give you any advice today, not that you ask for it from this goofball, but be kind to yourself. Just be good to people, man. Not because you want anything in return, but because that's just a better way to be. Kindness is not weakness. Laughter and being yourself should not be admonished. Be who you are, be good to each other, be good to yourselves. And speaking of just like being good to people and like being yourself, doing what you love to do, this week's guest really is the embodiment of that. I feel grateful that our paths crossed. She is none other than OUDi, originally from Canada. She is based here in the Nashville area, like myself. And to describe her music, I would say, and how she describes it, gothic drama meets dark cinema meets industrial pop. People since she's come into my purview, I've been describing her sound as kind of a mix of like industrial with synth and pop and '80s and kind of like Nine Inch Nails-y, Madonna-y, but like if you're into like Kate Bush as well. I really feel like her music would have been just as cool back in the '80s and '90s as it is now. And that's not me blowing smoke, it's true. So we were actually introduced through a mutual friend, shout out Bran, and shout out to his band Sleep Nation. And I went to this really cool '80s prom show for the second year in a row. I didn't dress up this year. I did wear my Lost Boys shirt, though. Shout out to Jad is Rad. Shout out to the Lost Boys. Great movie, still holds up. Best vampire movie, in my opinion. Anywho, um, but I went there for the second year, and it's really cool. The guy who puts it on, John, is awesome. And there's other shows that they do, but this one you can dress up like you're going to prom in the '80s if you like. And it's just a bunch of awesome artists in the local Nashville music scene doing 80s covers, man. And towards the end of the night, I was like, Brand, who is that up there? She's got a heck of a voice. You know, they're ripping it up there. And so he introduced us and you know, told her, you know, because I am kind of shy. Like I like talking with people, but I'm always like, I'm not like when I walk in a room, I'm not like, hey, like it's not like the Mike show. You know what I mean? I'm just kind of like, I just kind of vibe and kind of, but he introduced us and we chatted a little bit and I told her about my podcast and she's like, you know, man, my journey with perseverance and resilience, I feel like that's like right up my alley. I got a new song coming out. And so we made it happen. We hooked it up. So her album, Everybody Dies, her debut album is OUDi, came out back in 2024. Prior to that, some of you might recognize her from her time in Jakalope as well as Sons of Daughters. But OUDi, as you will hear in this conversation, is really her at her most authentic self. And since her debut album, Everybody Dies, came out in 2024, he's racked up over 500,000 streams as OUDi. Her latest single is Only Tattoo. That just came out on March 20th. And it's a hit, man. It really is. I mean, for what it is coming from this guy, all right. It's a hit. I loved it as soon as I heard it. It's got a really cool synthy vibe, really ethereal, all the things like I said to describe her music, gothic drama, dark cinema, industrial pop. It's a mix of all of those, man. And it's really, really good. It's really good. Off her debut album, Everybody Dies, I really loved Ending, Rest in Peace Summer, Afraid of Flying, and I really feel like Only Tattoo is just another extension of her continuing to be her most authentic self as an artist. It's really a great song. You know, for those of you who have, you know, dealt with love and loss in your life or just holding on to memories or people and kind of the grief that comes with that and sort of the pain and uh, the 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 changes that come with all of that, man. Like there's a lot of that in her music. But Only Tattoo is really, I feel like, a great representation, at least for my ear, from getting into her music after Brand introduced Audi and I. It's really awesome, man. So I'm gonna shut my big yapper and give you guys my conversation with Audi. Here it is. Alrighty, well, Audi, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, especially during the week of Only Tattoo coming out, man. I mean, when this hits people's ears, it's already going to be out, but so I'm just manifesting that it'll be doing great already. But thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So usually with these things, I mean I always do my homework and it's not really homework because I love music and shout out to Brand for introducing us. I've gotten a chance to connect with a lot of really cool people in the Nashville music scene and he's been like a good conduit and just a good dude in general. And shout out to Sleep Nation. But so I did do some of my research getting ready for this and listening to your music and stuff, but originally from Canada and from what I heard and looked up, didn't like in your immediate family there was nobody really musical that you had like a great grandfather or something that sang. So I'm just curious, like what was your rabbit hole moment for music, Audi? Like how did you get into it? Like what was the bug that bit you as far as like getting into music and being a singer?
As a conscious memory, it doesn't um really come to mind as like running in my family at all, though my mom loves to sing. So I do have memories of like sitting at a record player with my mom, just like singing at the top of her lungs to like John Denver, Dan Hill, and that kind of stuff. And I mean, my first concert when I was probably 3 or 4 years old was a John Denver concert, and like bless my mom, the amount of like phone calls she received when he passed away kind of thing. But I mean, I wasn't raised by my mom. I only got to see her for a few months out of the year. And on my dad's side, my dad loved to blast music. My dad's kind of like a tech junkie. So if there was like a new speaker to be had or like the car phone to have in the car, that kind of thing, he was the guy that had it. But so he was always blasting like Queen and Madonna and like top 40s and stuff. And I mean, I grew up, I think, in the golden era of like great Disney. So as a kid, I just like love singing and yeah, it just came to me very naturally. I don't think there was much influencing me as a kid to be a singer. It was very natural for me to just want to be a singer. And it grew. It grew from a really young age from, scream singing in my bedroom. My parents couldn't shut me up to putting me into choirs to at 16 forming my own band, but it didn't form from like a musical family per se.
It was just something that you were naturally drawn to.
It was. I think like the arts in general, I think as a kid, my upbringing, not necessarily that was compromised, but maybe my parents were really young when they had me, so the arts tends to like lean itself to people that like need to um connect or express. And I think that happened at a very young age for me.
And were you Vancouver area, was it? Is that where you
Yeah.
grew up?
Mhm.
How was like the local music scene there when you started getting into it?
When I started at like 16 to 19 years old, it was still pretty cool. Like we had some really cool venues. Some of the first venues, I mean, this is gonna date me, but like venues like the Brickyard or the Purple Onion in Vancouver, they were known for, or like before Live Nation took over, we had some like really cool, grungy venues. But Vancouver definitely, as it progressed, lent itself more towards development and that kind of stuff. We lost a lot of like cool venues to high rises and that kind of stuff. But I feel like in the era that I got to grow up in Vancouver, we got to see some pretty cool venues.
Yeah, I was always curious like what it was like up there because I know you mentioned being a director too as well and being really into film and even the stuff that you share on social media like how much you love movies and stuff like I know Vancouver gets used a lot because it's like such a big city instead of people shooting in like New York or LA. But I was always curious what the music scene was like there, especially being so close to Seattle. Like growing up, like that was like the 90s, like what became known as grunge. Like I have an older brother. I shout him out on here all the time. He's 6 years older than me. So when I was a kid in the 90s, looking up to your big brothers, and I have two older brothers, but he was really into like Metallica, Korn, but he was also really into like Alice in Chains and Nirvana and all those bands. And my dad had the unplugged Alice in Chains, which I think is the best unplugged record ever. He had that on cassette tape. But anyway, so I know like, geographically, like Vancouver isn't like too far from like the Pacific
Oh
Northwest.
yeah, I mean, we definitely got a hit of that. I mean, and that when that was booming, it's not necessarily where I was musically, but and also Vancouver's booming in the film industry. We have a couple really great studios up there, but also like I mean, you guys save 30% on your dollar coming to get Vancouver to make movies. And also Vancouver is one of the most beautiful places in the world, and for even at the Canadian dollar, one of the most expensive places in the world. But Vancouver, I don't think, oh my God, I'm scared I might get attacked, but like, I don't think we can hold any claim to fame to some real grunge scene. Seattle definitely holds the claim to fame for that kind of stuff. Um, Not to say Vancouver hasn't produced some amazing talent, but I would say Seattle, if anyone was experiencing that, it's because they were crossing the border to go to Seattle.
Well, and since we're on Vancouver, I'm going to nerd out with you real quick. So when I was a kid, one of the staples in our house was Nickelodeon on Saturday nights. And Are You Afraid of the Dark? I think might have been like the last one that came on. Um, did you ever get into that as a kid? Because it wasn't until I got older that I realized like Nickelodeon and I think the Canadian studio, like they shared like production or whatever. So there's multiple like a ton of Canadian act like Ryan Gosling was on there, Jay Baruchel was on Are You Afraid of the Dark? I think Ryan Gosling might have been on Goosebumps too, but did you Emmanuel Shrieky. Like, did you ever get into that as a kid? Because I think they shot a lot of that like in the vicinity or in and around Vancouver.
I didn't. I don't know where I was. When it came to like late night kid shit, and I don't even know if this was kid stuff, it was like Tales from the Crypt. That's where I was.
I love Tales from the Crypt too. That my brother and I still watch those all the time. And there was a lot of like big Hollywood people involved in that too. Like Richard Donner produced a lot of
Oh,
stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
and like yeah, cameos and stuff. It was yeah, next level. Actually, I miss it. It was really cool.
There's some good horror series stuff coming back though now. I feel like I really like The Haunting of Hill House on Netflix when that came out. Cabinet of
Hmm.
Curiosities with Guillermo del Toro was really good. But yeah,
Hmm.
I had to ask you that about Vancouver because I was like, when I was a kid, I Are You Afraid of the Dark? We really loved a little bit of Goosebumps too. Tales from the Crypt was like HBO, so usually it was like if my parents would like tape over, like you'd get like free HBO like with your cable package or whatever. So it was usually
Oh,
like
that's funny.
on the VHSs they would tape over stuff.
Man, yeah, I couldn't even tell you what channel it was. All that I knew is that we would wake up in the middle of the night to like the no television, stripes, the like loud pitch noises and the like that doesn't happen anymore.
It's wild, man. Well, for your musical journey, it's and that's what I love about Nashville too, is you meet people from all over the place. It's almost like rare if you meet somebody who's from the music city. I've been in Nashville now a little over 10 years, originally from the Midwest. And where I grew up musically, it was really cool. Toledo's like an hour south of Detroit, so Detroit's got a lot of rich music history too. And usually what was cool about it was like if a band was coming through there, they might play it on like an off night or whatever. But Nashville, obviously, like a lot of music history. And I didn't realize OUDi either when I moved here. Outside looking in, and Toledo's not like a small town, it's like a mid-sized city, but you just
I've
you
driven through it.
yeah, on I-75. Yeah, it's pretty flat part of Ohio, but yeah, like I thought Nashville was just mostly country, like outside looking in before I moved here. And then when I got here, and especially when I started to get more into like the local music scene, I realized just like everything was here. So for you, for people who don't know, like your history with Jakalope and Sons of Daughters, like what was that transition like making the jump and coming to Nashville? And how long have you been in Nashville now?
I've been in Nashville for 10 years as well. Um, I mean, Nashville wasn't even on my radar when I was in Jackalope. Jackalope was very Vancouver centric, West Coast. We did like a West Coast tour, that kind of stuff. Yeah, Nashville was not on my radar. It was with Sons of Daughters. Sons of Daughters kind of started off as like alternative Americana duo kind of thing, which I could definitely wrap my head around. We were messing around with like Civil War songs and Jack White kind of stuff. And then when we got signed and encouraged to move to Nashville, well, what happened is we had a cheerleader. We Sons of Daughters kind of had a weird start or like an interesting start. We got to play for AC/DC at a private dinner party. And that kind of just gave us this, like, I don't know, morale boost because they like gave us quotes we could use for our bio. And we got to work with their producer, Mike Fraser out of Vancouver, who's like, one of our closest friends and most talented and amazing people. And it just kind of like created this buzz around Sons of Daughters. And someone said, guys, you got to, because in Vancouver, we didn't necessarily know what was going on in Nashville, and we were encouraged to go. And I mean, Sons of Daughters had already at this time been together for about a year and a half and maybe had written 30 songs or so. And then we went to Nashville for a month and wrote 30 songs, and we are like, what are the people drinking here? Like, this is crazy. And we ended up getting signed shortly after that trip and encouraged to move to Nashville to kind of expedite our career. And that's exactly what Nashville did because it is just so saturated with insane talent and songwriters and players and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, we flourished here. It really was like a time and place where we felt we could really shine with what we were doing. Um, and then when I was transitioning out of Sons of Daughters and getting the thing is, those 8 years that I was in Sons of Daughters, and not to say that like I didn't learn a lot or enjoy a lot or go through some amazing, experiences. At the core of it, Sons of Daughters is not my musical genre of preference, and that was even a hard thing to navigate because I'm a songwriter. So I can write for any genre and I'm not gonna have like a bias to it. If you want to write a hip hop song or a metal song or a pop song or a country song, I'm there and I'm all in and I love it. I love music and I want to serve the song. But that got kind of convoluted to like, okay, but what music do I like personally? What speaks to me? And tried to find that in Sons of Daughters, but being in a duo is also like a constant compromise. So we really excelled as a pop country duo. Our first single was number 13 on Billboard. We played massive festivals. We really did really well. And so transitioning out of almost a decade of country genre to kind of go back to my roots, which is industrial rock, pop, was terrifying because I did it because I was like, well, I know this is what moves me the most. But then when I started showing my contacts that in this industry, like, oh, hey, this is what I just wrote, they're like, what the hell am I going to do with this? Where's the banjo? You know what I mean? Like, and that was jarring because I went, wow, like, I didn't necessarily feel it. There's this quote that I like that says, starting over doesn't mean you're starting from the bottom. It means you're starting from experience. And I really kind of held on to that quote because it's like, I really did feel like I was starting completely over, without taking account the history or experience I have. Um, but I did it because, after a decade of kind of creatively compromising myself. I just knew I had to do it whether it worked or not. And Nashville, yeah, at first I didn't, I was trying to play my industrial rock songs at country write-arounds, and it was like, this girl does not fit in. And it just took a while of sludging through to find my people here, and I did find my people here. There is an industrial scene here. There is a rock scene here. There are goth kids here, but they're not as prominent. It's not like when you're going to some bigger cities that it's, more prominent. You definitely have to seek it out here.
For sure, for sure. Well, and thanks for taking me through that journey because yeah, I'm always curious of like how people ended up here. I mean, obviously the music industry is huge here, but being outside looking in, not being a musician myself, I'm always curious of like what it's like, finding your people like that musically. And like you said, there is a really good scene for that here, like just the local shows that I've been to, and where we met at the 80s show, like that's the second year that I've gone to that, and like that whole collective of musicians, Brand and Sleep Nation being one of them. It's awesome, man. And everybody that I've met seems to be like really cool and really welcoming. And my first like foray into that group of musicians was back in like 2023. um I had started doing this podcast like more consistently during COVID when I was just working from home and bouncing off of four walls. And I'd kind of shut this part of myself off for a while, and I just miss doing it, like that pull to be like creative and connect with people, and like the mental health piece of it as well, and how music like ties into that with me. And just went out to a show and met Brand. Like we started talking about Seven Dust, and they're like one of my favorite bands, and it was like the Spider-Man meme, and we've stayed in touch. So yeah, a long way of me saying like I'm glad you found your people here because it's like the alternative
It,
scene here is really cool.
I'm sorry, yeah. I love how Bran plays a part in this because when I first met Bran is when I was first starting OUDi. OUDi, I don't even know if I had a song out and I was still just trying to figure my shit out. And after Sons of Daughters broke up, I took 2 years to figure out what I was doing. And that's kind of when I got into film, which grew legs of its own that I was not expecting. But, so I chased that for a while and I still do that. But I also spent 2 years just writing and recording and trial and error and trying to figure out what it was I wanted to do. And I remember being at the Underdog and I was just there randomly and Bran was playing. And it was like the first time that like someone so eccentric and unapologetically themselves and so cool, and I was in the mode of directing. So when they were playing, I just took my camera out and I was like, I'm just going to shoot content for these guys. I don't know who they are, but he's playing David Bowie. He has an astronaut helmet on. I'm just going to like take footage of these guys. And I sent it to them. And then we just became friends. And Bran introduced me to some people. And that's how I kind of got, but that was kind of, and he might not know this, but that was a moment where I was like, hey, there's this scene here I'm not plugged into, and um, no matter what genre or scene or aspect it is in Nashville, the one thing that I do love is there is a camaraderie here. Like in film, I was like, there was just a camaraderie. There's just people that showed up in country. There's a camaraderie. And now I'm finding in industrial alternative, there's a camaraderie. There's not, I haven't even experienced competition here. Like it has just been like, how you're awesome. You're awesome. What can we do? And it's just like, it's been awesome. Yeah, I do love Nashville for that.
Shout out Brandon and Joey, man. Yeah, they're cool. And their new stuff, man, like the new Spaceman stuff, I feel like that's from listening to your stuff, I feel like that's probably in your wheelhouse too. Like they've kind of gone like sort of like industrial, like dark wavy on the new stuff, and I really like it. And I kind of jumped ahead a little bit. And thanks again, Audi, so much for taking your time to do this and reschedule. I really appreciate it. Um, so the industrial influence, like listening to your music, I really loved it because it kind of gave me like I mean you kind of build it as like gothic drama, dark cinema, industrial pop. And I can tell like the music influence or the movie influence rather, because there is like really cinematic moments. But I liked it because like Only Tattoo, I feel like if it came out in 1986, it would have been dope. And it's dope now, like in 2026. Like it has that kind of like timeless vibe with like the synth and that chorus is so catchy. And like I don't know, I love like really good sad songs like on your record, your debut album. Like I love the whole thing, but ending, Rip Summer, Afraid of Flying. I loved all those, but so was like Nine Inch Nails and the industrial scene. Was that something like way back in the day when you were still in Vancouver? Was that the stuff that started to grab you? Like what got you into more like the industrial and kind of like the heavier type of stuff?
Yeah, I was 19. I have a clear memory of it. And that might even seem a little like late in the game, but I mean, in Vancouver, your drinking age is 19, and I remember I went to this. And up till then, I was kind of raised in a top 40s household. And then I discovered musicals and that kind of stuff, so I kind of got more into theatrics, and um, then I discovered Nirvana and Hole. So I was like definitely leaning into more like angst, but then at 16, 17, I got introduced to like 70s rock, and I was in a small town and we were doing all the things that make that music great. And I got super, super into like Zeppelin and Bowie and the Stones. And like, it was kind of like that or bust for a little bit. And then, I kind of, something happened and obsessed over Queens of the Stone Age songs for the deaf. Like I could not turn that album off. And they came to Vancouver and they were opening for Nine Inch Nails, and I think it was with the With Teeth tour. And I didn't know, I didn't I knew Nine Inch Nails, but I hadn't my bass player in the band that I was in at the time was, he wore the Nin hat and he would lock himself in the bedroom and, do the thing and watch visuals. And I was like, oh, that guy. And then I saw Nin for the first time, and it was probably one of the most like memorable kind of influential moments I've ever had, where I just kind of stood there with my mouth like dropped open the whole tour, the whole show. was like, what, what is this? And also before that, like I was saying, for my 19th birthday, we went to this club called Love Affair, and they were having industrial night. And it was all like Rob Zombie, Marilyn Manson, that kind of stuff. And I was kind of new to it and I lost my shit. I was like, I was just like a beast was emerging out of me. And I was like, oh, okay. And then when I saw Nin, there was something in me on an intuitive level that just meant that I just knew I was going to meet him. I knew I was going to be involved somehow. And the guy that I went with was like, shut up. Like, whatever. I'm like, I'm gonna meet that guy. He's like, no, you're not. And I ended up calling him when I did meet him, and I was in his car, and I was like 8 years later, like, guess where I am? And he's like, I hate you. But like, there was just like, I don't know if you have those experiences in life where just everything in you is saying, is yelling, like, this is something. And um, I was doing my thing in the music industry, and I knew Jonathan Simkin from 604 Records. He had approached me. He owns that with Chad Kruger from Nickelback. And he called me one day and just said, hey, Dave Ogilvie, he's got this project, Jakalope. They're looking for a new singer. Um, would you be interested? And I remember not too long before that, back in the day when HMV had like listening stations for CDs, Jackalope had released one of their albums, and I listened to it. And I know Katie now, and I all respect and love to Katie, who is the original singer of Jackalope. But I remember listening to it and thinking, I want to be the singer to this. There was a moment at this listening booth, and I was like, I should be singing this. No context, no reason for me to think this. And then probably a year later, I get a call. It's like, Jackalope needs a new singer. And I was like, this is wild. Went to Vancouver because at the time I was living about 4 hours away, met Dave, instant connection. Definitely a little ignorant to his resume at that time, but definitely became fast, close friends. And that's just when that just felt right. I was like in the right place at the right time, playing music that I absolutely loved. I mean, absolutely shitting on it. I was terrible back then. Like, I was so green and so young and like not prepared to be working with people of that caliber. But luckily somehow still crept through. So, um, and now we're back at it. But my introduction and evolution of industrial music started when I was 19.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Do you still have the ticket from that show? Do you
Oh,
save stuff
probably.
like
I do. Actually, this is gonna be so nerdy. All my ticket stubs.
that? Yes. I'm glad I
Yeah,
asked. Yeah, I have a shoebox full of tickets from concerts and games and stuff that I've gone over the years with my dad and stuff. Yeah.
that's fun. Yeah, I probably do. I'd have to search for it, but I guarantee I do. It's a like a fun social media segment I do where I like close my eyes and like pick a concert stub, and then I'm like, oh, Tech Nine at the Commodore.
Shout out to Tech Nine. I like if I can still have the option to get the physical tickets. Like when I saw Alter Bridge is like one of my favorite bands, and when they played the Ryman at Nashville a few years ago, you can buy like it, you got to pay more, but you can buy to get like the physical, and it's almost like holographic-y looking. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I like having keepsakes from that stuff, and I have like drawers full of concert t-shirts. If anything ever happens to me, my nephews and my niece are gonna have some really dope concert t-shirts. But yeah, shout out. Am I saying his last name right? Dave Ogilvie. Is that
Mm-hmm.
his last name from NIN Skinny Puppy? Yeah, and Jack.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking too, because your visuals and your music videos with Audi seem like really intentional and they're really cool. And I was like, man, Jackalope had some cool music videos too. A couple of ones that I checked out were was it Magnolia? Um,
Mm-hmm.
that was almost like a short film, and then like
Mm-hmm.
was it Witness too? Kind of
Mm-hmm.
like that. And in Witness, I have to ask too because I'm like damn, is she like really like did she turn on the waterworks there? There's one scene where it's like I'm gonna butcher like the cinematic shot, but like it's from top down and you're like crying and I'm like, is she did they just tell her to cry or did they put something in your eyes? Because you were like really you were really in it, like acting, and I was like, oh damn, she's turning on the waterworks right here. But
I think I had tears. They had tears for me. I was not in my acting years then. Those videos were insane. That's back when they had massive budgets. I think those videos called 50, would cost 50 grand a piece.
yeah, both of those were like, yeah, they were like short film movies.
Mhm.
I
I mean,
got
we had cranes witnessed. We had a whole forest blocked off with massive smoke snakes and cranes, like, cameras on. We had horses and carriages. It was nuts.
is the kid in you at that moment like when you mentioned like you just knew when you were younger, like drawn to music, starting a band when you're 16. Are there moments like that? And you mentioned being like a little green initially with Jackalope where you pinch yourself and you're like, this is like a lot of people are like, and no district like I have a 9 to 5 day job and I'm really grateful for it. But like I wonder with that sometimes with musicians when they're in those moments, they're like, oh my, like I'm really doing this. Like this is my Wednesday today. Like I get to like do this thing.
I had no idea back then. I didn't hate myself for it. If I was doing, oh God, honestly, Mike, if I could get, I would give anything to be who I am today to be back on that set. I had no idea what was going on. I had no idea how awesome it was. I had no idea the work and effort and money and time that was going into it. I was like in this little bubble of me, it's horrific. I mean, I also probably, because I was young, I was nervous, just hoping I was gonna do a good job. I was hyper focused on, oh, I hope I look good enough, that dumb shit. Like, yeah, for Witness, it was so cool, but I just didn't know how cool it was. And then Magnolia, I remember being sick. I wasn't well on that set. And also I'm not in that as that much. That was a massive set that took, probably 16 hours that I think I had probably an hour or two of actual footage. So
Yeah, at the end of it in the house, though, you're like all like you and the whoever the male like actor character was, where everybody like comes in the room at the end of it. It gave me like almost like a witch trial type of vibe. I don't know if
it
that was
was that, yeah, we were the witches on trial and we were um I think being wrongfully accused of something. Man, that was so cool too. That was another thing that I wish I could be who I am today. Because I remember for the costumes for that, we went to like a costume depot in Toronto, and it was like a Costco of just costumes. And you could spend hours in there, and everything was on turnstiles, and it was the wildest thing ever, like an actual movie set, like a massive movie production costume depot. And I was just like, I don't know, young, you know what I mean? So when parents are like, you're gonna take your kids to like Paris for the first time, and you're like, look at this, look at that, and your kid's like, yeah, on their Game Boy, That's what I feel like.
I mean, you can't beat yourself up though, right? Like that old quote, I wish I knew now, or what is it? Like I wish I knew now what I knew then, or knew then what I know now, rather. But I think that's part of life, man. Like all your like we're all like who you are today is just a culmination of all your experiences to this point, like the good, the bad, hopefully whatever you've learned from it. Some stuff, the painful stuff, sometimes you have to unlearn some things or like self-inflicted wounds, but you still have those memories, you still have that experience, and I'm sure it's still probably I mean, not to speak for you, Audi, but I'm sure it probably helps inform like who you are now. And it's cool to see you doing the music that you love to do. Like you said, being a jackalope, having success. doing that and Sons of Daughters, different musically, but coming into your own with this, like I really enjoy, and I'm not just blowing smoke, like I really love, like, so the house that I grew up in, like you mentioned your dad with like the rock and stuff, like my dad is very much classic rock. Free Fallin', Tom Petty is still one of my favorite songs ever, because that album I think is Full Moon Fever. It came out in like 89 and I was born in 88, so I remember being like 2, 3, 4 years old in like the early 90s, and him playing that in the living room on the entertainment center. Everybody under 30 is like probably like, what's an entertainment center right now? That's what we called it back then. He had like the two cabinet speakers and like um but that like 80s influence in what you do too, or and I'm sorry if I'm like misrepresenting it, but like just like the synths and like that type of vibe, combined with the industrial, like I love it. And
Hmm.
only tattoo is like, that's a vibe. Like I feel like that is like I don't know how you feel when you write songs, Audi, but that's to me, like when people are like, that's a hit, like for my ear and like what I like I feel like that's gonna do really well for you. So again, this is gonna be out in April when people hear this.
No,
Um
it's out this Friday, March
or
20th.
oh, I mean this podcast. So
Oh, yes.
yeah, so by the time this people hear this, it'll be out for a few weeks already. But yeah, I think it's really awesome. And like your songwriting too, I feel like the theme of the show, March 4th, like I can hear some of like the some of that in the lyrics, like in terms of like perseverance. Like I this one, and thank you again for sending over like the materials like a pro. But I mean, you can kind of tell lyrically, but about like, the memory of somebody that's like not in your life anymore, and kind of like I don't know if struggle is the right word, but kind of like holding on to the memory, but being able to let it go too. And even in like Rip Summer, you were talking about going from like lovers to strangers, and I think a lot of people can relate to that. So I don't know if
Hmm.
there's even a question there other than how excited are you to just, it really feels like with that album that came out, your debut album, and the singles that you've been releasing, that this is really like your voice and like what you really wanted to do.
Yeah, I mean, it feels great, and it's been like a constant evolution. And like you had mentioned before, there is like a constant theme of like self-reflection and resilience, perseverance, that kind of thing. And I think with the two songs that you brought up, like R.I.P. Summer and Only Tattoo, there is like a melancholy kind of like a sadness written into like change, but it's also trying to like promote embracing grief, the grief that comes with change. And even though like to acknowledge that, hey, this could be a positive thing that's happening, this is a good thing. And but just because it's a good change doesn't mean that there is like a sadness or a grief that deserves the respect and the attention and 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 just to be like acknowledged. It doesn't have to be like dwelled upon or and get lost in the sadness of it all, but to understand like, hey, sometimes like some positive changes and growth come with like the grief of an old self, and that's okay. I think I in the past have lost myself in that grief and identified with that grief and kind of like to write my story as some like tragic theme. um, but these songs definitely speak to the perseverance through that, and Only Tattoo, yeah, it is kind of a sad song. It's like, man, I would have held on to you till death, but I'm letting it go. It is fading, and I do miss some things, but it's okay. Rest in peace. Summer is like kind of depicting the changing of seasons or personifying the changing of seasons of like, hey, the trees aren't grasping to the leaves, they let it go with like um faith that something new or that something better will come along. But yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that. And yeah, I can relate, man. Like whether it's death or heartbreak, like losing people you love, losing relationships that at one point in time meant a lot to you. and meant something to that other person too. It's hard. Letting go is tough. I struggle with that with a lot of things in life. Part of that's probably like my anxiety and OCD tendencies too. But I really like the line, you can spend your whole life in the garden waiting on seeds that will never bloom. And I heard that and I was like, damn, because I feel
Hmm.
like sometimes I get stuck in like rumination,
Hmm. Or
good
the
and bad.
fantasy of something, or like the visual, you're like, oh, I can see this happening. Let's wait around and see if it happens. And it's like, well, yeah. Yeah, I feel you. And like kind of speaking to what we were talking about before, it's almost like I've seen so many documentaries or read so many books on like musicians that were afraid to get sober. They're like, oh, am I still gonna be able to like sing or play my guitar if I'm like sober? And I kind of felt the same way. I was like, am I still going to be able to write good songs or like be a good musician if I'm like not just being chaotic and like identifying with sadness and creating dramas for myself? Like, if I really start working on myself and healing and truly finding like peace and sitting with things, am I just going to become a shit musician? But I feel like this journey has kind of slowly proving to me like, no, like there's still a lot of story to tell and a lot of emotion to put into songs and like a lot to say for like writing writing songs that speak to growth.
For sure. There's growth in the healing, 100%. And like, I got to imagine like the catharsis of being a songwriter is probably pretty awesome. Like having the ability and the gift to do that. There was one, I don't know if it was one that you had shared on your social media or if it was another interview when I was getting ready for this. And thank you again so much for your time, Audie. I really do appreciate it. But like ending, you mentioned that was one where it was like almost immediately like you went out on the porch or whatever with the guitar and that just like poured out of you. um but yeah, Only Tattoo was that one that came together like it listening to it like front to back. It really is a dope song. Like I'm excited for you. Like was that one that came together quickly? Like how does that process go? I'm sure it varies like song to song, but it flows really well. Like the length of the song, the chorus, like I feel like that one like that's a song that can be like a summer anthem. Like it can be like a good winter like because it's got sort of like that melancholy vibe too. Like it
Thank God, because I keep writing songs that are like specific to seasons. It's really pigeonholed myself. Like Monster was so like Halloween and R.I.P. Summer was so fall. Um, no, Only Tattoo came out quite quickly. I mean, most of my songs do, and I think it's because I have a system and a very trusted circle now. I also am known for being a quick songwriter. That's just people have been like, holy sh what? That just happened real fast. And I don't know what that is about me. I do things quickly in general. My film sets, everything. I don't like to waste time. Um, and I find if like, I don't know, sometimes in songwrites, people just get stuck on ideas and just want to talk about everything forever. And it just kind of gets weighted, gets heavy. But typically now, and especially with Only Tattoo being one of the most recent songs I've written, it just kind of fell into my system where I have an emotion, I sit at the piano, I sing, lyrics just come to me. I don't overanalyze it. I really just try to get out as much as I can, and then I take it to someone that I trust, and we build on that. Um, Only Tattoo is a little special because one of the songwriters I brought it to is just so musically inclined. I'm very much like a, 3, 4 chord, 2 chord person songwriter, emotional spewer. Um, and then I'm just very blessed to have these like musically inclined geniuses in my circle that are like, hey, did you think about adding an extra chord here, maybe? You know? And then the person who I wrote this song with also I consider to be like a melodic genius and really sat with me and helped and worked with me through because sometimes if you're recording and singing a melody that maybe doesn't come naturally, it's not super easy to like get a grasp on. But he just had a really great way of kind of coaching me through the session. And it's nice because I am doing this on my own, and it just feels, for the first time in God knows decades of creating music, I can say, I don't like that. And then we move on, you know, instead of saying, hey, I don't really like that. And then having to fight or just give up or being like, hey, I really like this. And then having someone be like, I don't. And it's like, ah, now the process is so quick. I don't like that. Okay, let's try something else. I love that. Good. Here we are. I mean, for any songwriter, they're probably gonna be like, yeah, that's the process. But it hasn't been that way for me. So it just feels like it moves much quicker too. So Only Tattoo was a very clear idea. I knew what I wanted to say. Um, it was just me and another person. And then when we had the bones of it, I take it to my producers who are just synth production pioneers. Like they're just next level. So, and I have all the trust, here you go. And I sit in a room with them and I scream and dance while they're making it sound awesome.
It's got a cinematic feel too, and I feel like the synths add to that. Like that song could be in like a movie. Like that's
Mhm.
yeah. I'm excited for you. And then like some of the stuff you've put out like teasers on like social media. Um, the one was like you're in like a tub and it's like milky, kind of look like is that the video for Only Tattoo?
I got some, yeah, we have some content for that. I've like in this world and day and age of content and videos and stuff, I'm like steering away from music videos because they're so expensive and that's money to me that can be put to other things like music, and or content or ads or marketing and that kind of stuff. And I not to discount music videos. If I had the money, I would make them and I would go crazy, cinematic, elaborate on them. But right now we're in a world of content and the content's 30 seconds, 15 seconds, 30 seconds long, right? So yeah, there's definitely going to be a lot of content out of that. I do have like a budget music video I do want to do for this video, but no, that was just a concept I had. I really wanted to lean just into the contrast of like black and white and the idea of like I don't know, having your only well, it was supposed to be black water and like only tattoo was going to be melting and making the water black. But once we got into a milk bath, it just looked so sick. So we're like, this is just a visual we really want to stick with. Only tattoo has like a ton of visuals.
That's cool to hear. Yeah, and isn't it wild too, like how like I don't know, we went from like albums or when I was a kid in the 90s too, I remember bands would release the single, but it was almost like a little EP. You'd have like the radio single, and then maybe you'd have like a live track. Like I had to take my first Metallica CD back to the store. I've told this story way too many times on this podcast. People who listen regularly probably like, here he goes again. But Until It Sleeps came out. And that was like the controversial, Metallica cut their hair and they, after the Black Album came out, they went more into that direction. But Until It Sleeps, like was on MTV and my brother was listening to it. So I was like 8. So I just got like something that said Until It Sleeps on it. And the third track was James Hetfield just MFing it. And my mom's like, oh, honey, we got to take that back. So, like, the same day we had to go back to CD Warehouse, it was called. And the dude behind the counter was like, all right, little dude. But yeah, so like it's weird how we've gotten into this age now of like you said, the short form content. And
Hmm.
like I'm trying to go like full video for the podcast, and I'm finally gonna do it this year. Um, but that's why I started doing video shorts too, because I'm like a lot of the shows that I listen to and love, like they're doing these short video reels for the podcast, and it's wild. Like sometimes you'll look at stuff and it'll be like, yeah, somebody watched that for 7 seconds, and you're like,
And the
dude,
amount of time and stuff that goes into it. And like, I also have like a certain aesthetic and like quality I like to deliver and it's not cheap. And it's almost at that point, it's like, hey, if I'm going to bring that kind of camera down and that kind of camera person and those kind of lenses and that light and that setup, for a 30-second clip, we might as well do a music video. But then it's just like, okay, are we making this a 4 hour day or a 16-hour day? And how many locations and how much money do you have? But yeah, it's tough because I am a cinematic person, and it's funny how that works because cinema and my music, it wasn't like a conscious collaboration. I wasn't like, hey, I want to make my music sound cinematic. I just am a cinematic person, as someone else would be considered a theatrical person. It's just it did come naturally. And I think being raised with film, I worked at a movie store for 4 years and I obsessed over film as I did with music. And then in creating film, I definitely developed like a huge love for soundscape, sound design, and that kind of stuff. So now when I create music, I'm like, I want soundscape. I want cinematic soundscapes in my songs. But yeah, it's painful. I'm not gonna lie. I want music videos. I have visions, but my visions are not cheap, and I'm not willing to like compromise either. I don't want to be like, okay, I see this, but I only have this much, so it's gonna look budget. I would rather just do, there's content that you can create for a low budget that still looks cool, that doesn't have to be this like attempt at some massive cinema.
For sure. And thank you again so much for your time. There a few more things I want to touch on with you before I get you out here. And it sounds like it was a busy day. So again, Audi, I really appreciate you being cool and patient, rescheduling and talking to this goofball for a little bit. But like your look with Audi, and even when I met you, you had like the I apologize if I'm not going to describe it well for the listeners, but almost like teardrops or like under and then like the dots over your eyebrows. And I just saw something recently on your Instagram. You were like polling like your followers of like, hey, what 90s movies do you love? I actually responded. It was a bunch of like comedies. Uh
Yeah.
yeah, and heavyweights and like yeah, Tommy Boy's like it's like that's like a temporary depression cure. I love that movie. But
I
anyway,
love that.
mentioned the crow, you're like, is it obvious? And then as soon as you said, I was like, oh, maybe that was a little bit of like, but yeah, how did you come up with?
Right.
Because I feel like that's a pretty unique look with that with the under eye. Like, and again, I apologize if I'm not describing it well. I'll let you talk because you could probably describe it a lot better than I can.
Oh, that's fine. No, I've always been trying to like figure out exactly how to like present myself with this music and stuff, without, I don't know, it's just been a natural progression. And that started with Monster. I never released it, which it's my own fault, but I did a music video for Monster where I'm just singing and I'm in this white shirt, and then the lyrics are, it's true, the monster is you. And I wanted to showcase like this blackness coming out of the heart or the soul or the body. So it was like this ink that kept coming out and spreading over this white shirt, and then it started pouring down my eyes. And I remember a Billie Eilish music video where she had the tears pouring down her face, and even Paramore did it with the rainbow tears. And I remember when I saw it, I was like, that is so cool. Like, it just, to me, it was like next level. And but that's just like in passing. And then in Monster, I had the black tears, and I remember I didn't want to take them off. I have pictures till the next day of these, like, we like went for dinner after. I'm like, I'm not washing my face. And then we went to bed, and I'm like, I'm keeping this on my face. Like, it just felt so soothing, because I do think, in my life, I'm kind of like a product of perpetual heartbreak or like, I don't know, challenges, and I have like this inner angst. We came up with this saying today that was like, oh God, what was it like? Inner rage, outer calm, and I just felt like the tears represented this, it had to come out. So I did it for my next show, and it just felt like such a great representation of where I'm at now and what I'm doing, like just this explosion of angst. And it suits my music, and I can't stop because without them, I feel naked. I almost wore them for this podcast.
Do you make those or did you find somebody like Like, cause you use like red ones, black ones, like are pretty prominent. Like,
Yeah, it's a secret. No. No, typically it's just like paint, face paint. I'm a little like yeah, so it's face paint or there's these like stickers I buy, but I chop them up so that they fit my face a bit.
okay, so you do kind of like make them custom a little bit. All right, and it
I have to, yeah.
was it at all? So okay, so that was the inspiration, but Crow, the Crow, kind of like did that play into it at all, or was like that imagery of that kind of look, or no?
No, I wasn't thinking about The Crow when I did it, but I have mad respect for that movie. I think that the cover of Monster, where I'm a kid, was my parents dressing me up as the Crow.
No, it's cool. It's like it's a unique look, and I think it's cool when artists can like tap into something that's like their own, you know.
Yeah,
And
I do have respect for that.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
been it's been a huge lesson in branding over the years, you know. I feel like I've really, even with Jackalope, I always kind of felt like I was wearing a costume. You know, I definitely felt like I was wearing a costume in Sons of Daughters, which is so funny because it was the most modern, normal outfits. Uh, in OUDi, I feel finally like I am not wearing a costume. You know, I am who I am on that stage every day, kind of thing. I can get up there in this. I can, you know, it just feels, it all feels very natural. And I'm just like really trying to lean into um, the music and the sound and the look and I want it to be recognizable.
hell yeah, man. Well, I really appreciate the time. I'm excited for you for Only Tattoo. I'm excited for people to hear it. And with the theme of the show being perseverance and moving forward. And thanks again so much, Audi. Like, um, I guess, and sometimes I'm always like, maybe I should structure this differently because I usually ask it at the end, and I'm like, this is kind of a heavy question. I'm realizing as a human being, but like the theme of the show March 4th, like that's kind of a play on words with my birthday, and I just took the U out of it and made it like a personal mantra of perseverance and moving forward with like stuff that I've struggled with in my life, but also like having conversations about mental health and letting people know they're not alone. And music is a huge cathartic force for me in my life and has been since I was a kid. You mentioned a little bit ago, like, you know, kind of being like chaotic, but kind of like learning to like grow and heal. What advice would you have, Audi, for people out there, whatever their struggle is? I mean, obviously, I'm not a doctor. This is an entertainment podcast, right? But as somebody who has the kind of experience that you do in entertainment, and you've gone through these different phases of your career, and you mentioned just a few moments ago how this feels like you stepping into, like you feel the most you up there. What advice would you have for people who maybe are going through some chaotic spells right now, or whether it's heartbreak or grief, as somebody who's really kind of expressed that in your music, and it kind of sounds like you've learned to cope with it or express it in healthy ways.
Yeah, I would say in my experience with chaos or mental health, especially grief, is to not, I mean, if I was going to give any advice, it's just to not judge it. You know, in some of my like recent, I don't know, kind of like the reading or the training or the meditations I've done is to really lean into the idea of impermanence, that nothing is forever, including your emotions. um, to be able to kind of sit with them, acknowledge them, recognize them, and not judge them, you know, 'cause the more you're kind of like judging yourself or judging, oh, why am I so, I hate that I'm sad about this, or I have so much anxiety, or it's like, you know, and also to exercise compassion, you know, sometimes like if I'm really upset about something, or even I'm just tired or exhausted and it can really make you feel like, oh God, I feel this way. But if you kind of look back in the last few weeks or months and can you be like, yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense I'm tired. I just worked 10 days in a row, or hey, I just had a really hard conversation with a friend, or I just had a breakup, and like that, this might take me some time to, it makes sense I'm upset. It may like, hello, anger, I see you. Hello, sadness, I see you. Like my song, Hello, Loneliness, I see you. Um, I'm not going to reject you. I'm not going to judge you. Kind of like sit with it and embrace it, because that's maybe where some true healing and magic can go, where you can actually sit down and have some of these conversations with yourself and trust that it will pass, And as cheesy as it's going to sound, this too shall pass. And I think the more you kind of lean into that thought and understanding that life is just a constant evolution of ups and downs too, it's sometimes I'm not aware of, I forget that you can get so caught up in a down that you forget to tell yourself, I'm going to be up. And it might not be tomorrow and it might be in months from now, but there's going to be periods of time where I'm like, oh, life is so great. And also in that moment, remember, hey, maybe in a, to not hold on or take too seriously to the emotions that we're going through, because everything is going to be constantly changing and everything is impermanent, you know? So that's been a huge help in my journey, and I definitely have gone through some trying times, and there is a moment in my history or in my past where someone very close to me was almost passed away and had been on life support for 7 weeks and had pretty much tried to take their own life. And it gave me this a different kind of perspective on human resilience in general, or empathy, the fact that like, let's just try to get through the next day and cheer everyone on, like, hey, like, you did it. We're still here. Um, whatever it is you're going through, you know, whether it's like whoever, you know, I think that people, well, not people, I just think life is hard. Life is hard. And that's nothing to like get hung up on, you know? It's just a fact. And another fact is life is awesome, and just try not to judge your days. And if you have had a rough life, acknowledge that, but don't get lost in it. Don't get caught up in it. Don't let it dictate today, you know? Um, and if you come across a bad day, just sit in it. It's okay to have a bad day or week or year, man. I've had bad years, you know? So I just want people, the thing that's helped me is just to be a lot more compassionate with myself.
I appreciate you sharing that. I really do. Yeah, there's I think people and that's why I love doing this. Is because I think I don't know if it was Robin Williams who said it or he was like attributed to it, but it was like be kind to everybody you meet because they're going through something that you know nothing about, you know. But I also like the idea of impermanence too. Um, you know, to know that like whatever you're going through, good or bad, like it's like it's gonna pass. And I think that that brings you back to presence more. And
Mhm.
like that's so hard for me, man. Like I feel I spend so much time up here, Audi. It's like, and in learning to just like be where your feet are, as cheesy as that sounds, like it's tough, man. Um,
And
but
it changes like as you get older, like I feel like some things become easier, like dumb shit, the older you get, I'm like, I don't care as much what I look like. I don't care about what people think about me or whatever. The things that used to matter with age and wisdom and experience, you start to care less about some things, but there's going to be new worries. Now it's like, oh God, I'm old now and this is happening or I'm running out of time or whatever. Like there's always going to be something, and it's just like just really trying. Like I go to the thing that has affected my life the most, and I don't go as much as I should, but there's a meditation group here that I go to. Um And I did like a 5-day silent retreat, and that definitely was a very like altering, experience. But it's just like really and truly peace is found now. Like peace is in the present. It really is. It's with just sitting with an ethical living, not wanting for more, being truly grateful for what you have. And just, and ethical living has definitely become something that's more natural now. I grew up in an environment of wanting more. You should have a nice car, you should have a nice house, you should have fancy clothes, you should have a lot of money. And it's still something I definitely struggle with. But like, after some travels and stuff in Southeast Asia, I became very like kind of ashamed of that mentality because you don't need anything. You don't need any of that stuff. And when you start to like kind of let that shed and just really be happy with where you're at, it really can change your perspective on life.
I really appreciate your time. Again, I know I've said thank you a lot, but it's just because my mom raised me not to be short of my thank yous, and I really appreciate you
Like
rescheduling it.
you grew up in Canada or something. You just
I
haven't said sorry enough.
I'm getting better at I say sorry a lot too, but I'm getting better at I'm getting better at not saying sorry when I guess I don't need to say I'm sorry. But no, I genuinely appreciate your time, Audi.
Yes,
Really
you
excited
too.
for you.
Thank you.
Everybody go listen to Only Tattoo. I'm excited for whatever else you got coming in 2026, but I think it's important to like we're talking about, embrace the moment and just enjoy the song because I we're in this age of like singles, and it's like there's this single and then there's the next single and then there's but everybody should listen to Only Tattoo. I think it's a hit, man. I really, and I'm not just blowing smoke. Like I love this kind of music, so like I'm like a fan of yours now. So shout out to Brand for introducing us, but I think Only Tattoo is like a real vibe. So I think people are really gonna like it, especially going like into spring and summer. I feel like this could be like a summer anthem too. So I'm ranting. I want to let you enjoy the rest of your night. For people who aren't aware of where they can find you, Audi, I'll put up the links in the podcast description, but let them know where they can find you.
Everything is branded as It's Me Audi, ITSMEOUDI. So whether it's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, my website, It's Me Audi. And I have a show in Nashville, May 21st. So everyone needs to come to that.
That's right. Where is that going to be? Is it the East Room? Is that where
Hmm.
that? My memory
Hmm.
serves me right. Okay. Right on. Well, Audi, thank you again so much. I really appreciate the time. I'm glad you're making the music that you love to make, and yeah, I hope you keep doing your thing. And I hope the rest of the 2026 is awesome for you. And I'm grateful that our paths crossed. And yeah, just all the positive vibes, man.
You right back to you. Thank you so much.
Alrighty, dighty, there you have it. That was my conversation with Audi. Make sure you go follow her on Instagram and all of her socials at It's Me Audi. That is spelled OUDi. The website is itsmeaudi.com. The links to all of her stuff will be in the podcast description for this episode. So you know what to do. Scroll down to the bottom of the podcast description, hit those links, and go follow and support Audi. Once again, her new single, Only Tattoo, is available now, available everywhere you get your music. As of recording the intro and close to this week's episode, a few weeks after its release, it's already nearing 25,000 streams on Spotify alone. So, congrats, Audi. I can't even imagine what the streams are when you factor in all the musical platforms, but it is very well deserved. It is a banger. I love that song so much. Everybody go run up the numbers on Only Tattoo and go back and stream her previous work as well, man. Go back and listen to her debut album, Everybody Dies. That's available everywhere you get your music. It's all in the podcast description at the bottom. So go show her some love and support. And I just want to say directly to Audi, Thank you so much for taking the time to join this goofball on this podcast and take myself and the listeners through your journey, Audi. I really, really appreciate it. It was great talking with you. Shout out to Bran for introducing us at the 80s prom show. He's been a conduit to so many awesome people like yourself in the local music scene, and I feel really grateful that I pushed through my fear and some of my social anxiety and went out to that show. I think it was Zakapalooza back in 2023 where I first met Bran and saw Sleep Nation perform the first time, and we geeked out on Seven Dust and have just become buddies and gone to shows together. And I try to get out to as many as I can in the local music scene. But he's a really good guy, and you're awesome, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show. You're welcome back anytime. I really feel like your journey of just pursuing what you love to do and going through, the ups and downs in the music industry and finding your voice with Audi is really cool. So thank you so much for taking the time. And thank you to all of you for listening to the podcast. If you did enjoy this conversation and you enjoyed Audi's music, one thing that you can do that'll go a long way in helping get this conversation out to more people is if you like and subscribe to the podcast, if you share this episode, if you tell a friend to tell a friend, and if you leave a rating and a review on this podcast on whatever streaming platform you are listening to the show, I know Spotify and Apple in particular have a 5-star rating system. And if you rate the show and leave a comment, those things, as far as I understand it, help the algorithm, let the algorithm know that you enjoy the show and it helps it rank higher organically. And that's what I want, man. I want to put more people onto dope musicians like Audi and what she's doing. Again, Only Tattoo's a banger. I'm not just saying that. It's awesome. I love the song. And again, I really, really enjoyed her debut album, Everybody Dies, as well. Loved Ending, Rest in Peace Summer, Afraid of Flying. Go listen to the whole thing. But if you do those things, it helps get the show out to more people. And once again, at It's Me Audi. And if you want to follow me, I'm at March 4th Pod on pretty much all my socials, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. If you look up March 4th Pod, you will find me, and that is FORTH. And the podcast is also now on YouTube. So yeah, the last two episodes, starting with episode 205. Shout out to the guys and ourselves, among others. They're sick. That was the first one I put up on YouTube. I've been talking for a long time about doing full video episodes of the podcast, and I finally am doing it. I just had to take the time and get through this imposter syndrome and anxiety, all this crap I hold on to, man, and just do the dang thing. So that's what I'm doing. So in addition to audio, you now get to see my face intermittently in these conversations on YouTube. And this episode will be on YouTube as well, man. So thank you to everybody who listens. I truly appreciate it. Thanks again to Audi. She's awesome. Go follow her. And again, keep the faith and be kind to one another and be kind to yourselves. I hope that all of you have an awesome week. Courtesy of Audi, you know what it is. Here's her latest single, Only Tattoo. Peace.